A young woman, barely 19, stepped toward what chroniclers would later call the most dangerous altar in Russian history. Inside her, though she could not know it, was a poison rumor claimed would claim her life within 15 days. Marfa Sobakina had no idea that a simple draft offered by her anxious mother, meant to secure fertility and ensure a future heir for the empire, might instead turn her wedding night into a death sentence. What should have been the consummation of imperial hopes became, according to court gossip, the spark for one of the most ferocious reprisals Moscow had ever witnessed. Ivan IV, remembered by history as Ivan the Terrible, believed his third bride had been murdered by a misguided act of maternal love. Letters whispered about in embassies described quiet weapons hidden behind the curtains of imperial chambers, tinctures and powders said to cure, yet able to kill without trace. Rumors insisted that 20 people would pay with their lives for one mother's recklessness. A nobleman, some wrote, was executed publicly in Red Square as stunned crowds looked on. Whether every detail was embroidered or true, one fact endured. The young Tsarina's sudden death fed the paranoia of a ruler already feared for merciless justice. These stories, preserved in diplomatic notes and later chronicles, told how mercury, prized in the 16th century as a treatment for venereal disease and an aid to conception, may have become the silent instrument of tragedy. The bridal chamber of 1571 was not only the scene of a Tsarina's demise. As later writers framed it, it was the birthplace of a monster who would plunge Russia into an empire of suspicion and dread. 15 days, the accounts insist, held more treachery, anguish, and consequence than decades of open war. This was the tale imperial healers preferred to bury, hidden beneath court records for more than 4 centuries. On that fateful table, salvation and ruin lay side by side. A mother's gift transformed into the empire's funeral bell. Let us step back to the moment catastrophe began to take shape. The year was 1571. Across Russia, the Oprichnina, Ivan's secret police, tightened its grip through fear, executions, and punitive raids. Ivan IV, then 41, sought stability through dynastic continuity. His second wife, Maria Temryukovna, had died 2 years earlier under circumstances already whispered about as suspicious. With no healthy male heir, the Tsar launched what chroniclers described as the largest bridal contest Muscovy had ever witnessed. From forests near the White Sea to plains beyond the Volga, envoys summoned more than 2,000 eligible maidens to the fortress of Alexandrovskaya Sloboda, 100 kilometers from Moscow. The citadel, ringed by timber walls and crowned with onion-domed chapels, doubled as headquarters for the Tsar's dreaded bodyguards. Executions in its squares were said to be as common as daily meals, a grim reminder to the gathered women that the ruler's favor could be as lethal as his wrath. The selection followed strict Byzantine precedent handed down from Constantinople. Physicians inspected candidates with forensic precision, certifying purity, fertility, and strong health. Astrologers compared birth charts to search for signs of harmony or danger between maiden and monarch. At each stage, the field shrank. 2,000 hopefuls became 24, then 12 finalists. Foreign envoys observed with unease. Venetian ambassadors wrote dispatches, coded to evade interception, describing a czar oscillating between pious gloom and unpredictable fury. To them, the choice of a consort was a matter of international consequence. The right bride could steady Ivan's temper, the wrong one could deepen the instability already shaking his realm. On June 26, 1571, the final choice was announced. Marfa Vasilyevna Sobakina, daughter of a wealthy Novgorod merchant, was declared the victor. Contemporary accounts described her as gentle yet composed, innocence joined with intelligence, an ideal partner for a ruler seeking solace after grief. But days after her selection, ominous whispers spread. Marfa seemed pale, listless, her strength fading even as wedding preparations intensified. Physicians of the time, limited in knowledge, diagnosed exhaustion, imbalance, or spiritual affliction. Their herbs, prayers, and diets failed to halt her decline. Some blamed overwork from ceremonies. Others suspected sorcery or the envy of rivals. Later readers, examining letters and diplomatic notes, proposed a different cause, a fertility potion prepared by Martha's mother. The mixture, according to such narratives, contained mercury, believed to stimulate conception but capable in excess of ravaging the body. Truth or legend? The The tale captured the imagination of historians and artists, becoming part of the lore surrounding Ivan's reign. At 19, Marfa embodied a radiance chroniclers called both divine and dangerous. Her hair gleamed like molten gold. Her eyes, deep and clear as northern lakes, seemed to promise stability to a restless empire. Imperial physicians admired her strength and believed she could produce vigorous heirs. She was the daughter of Marfa Sobakina, a prosperous merchant whose wealth placed him among a rising class challenging old aristocratic power. Connections, including a distant tie to Maluda Skuratov, fearsome lieutenant of the Oprichniki, helped open the gates of the Sloboda. To some observers, Marfa represented a subtle revolution, the ascent of talent and commerce over hereditary privilege. Facing her across the vast chasm of power was Ivan Vassilievich himself, a man whose legend had already darkened with suspicion and rage. At 41, he had buried 2 wives and 2 sons amid rumors of conspiracy. Towering in stature, he commanded presence. Inside, he battled storms of insecurity and superstition. He used calculated terror to maintain control, staging executions as theater, reminding all that life and death lay in his hands. Each bereavement deepened his obsession with producing a legitimate heir. To Ivan, Marfa was more than beauty or comfort. She was believed to be his final chance to secure the dynasty. But while courtiers prepared beaded gowns and ceremonial crowns, unseen forces were weaving a darker fate. In Novgorod, Marfa's mother, anxious to ensure her daughter's fertility and health, turned to an old household remedy. Later tales insisted the potion contained mercury, praised by village healers for stimulating conception yet lethal in the wrong dose. She measured the mixture with trembling hands, unaware that in trying to secure a grandson for the throne, she might doom her child. The wedding took place on October 28, 1571, at Trinity Church in Alexandrovskaya Sloboda. It should have displayed imperial triumph. Instead, it carried an omen's gloom. Witnesses recalled Marfa beneath the heavy crimson robes looking fragile, her face drained of color. Attendants discreetly supported her as she approached the altar. During the exchange of vows, she swayed, collapsing twice. Priests excused it as mystical modesty. Physicians, however, noted tremors, sweating, and unnaturally dilated pupils, signs of a deeper affliction they lacked the knowledge to identify. The feast meant to last until morning faltered before midnight. Roast swan and honey-spiced dishes went untouched as concern spread. Marfa was carried to the bridal chamber, lavish with Persian carpets, heated floors, glowing braziers, and incense meant to kindle desire. Instead, the fragrance masked the sour scent of sickness. Ivan entered expecting to claim his bride. Instead, he found a young woman struggling to remain conscious. Chroniclers wrote that he paced the chamber, torn between anger and fear, summoning physicians who brought herbs and prayers but no remedy. The marriage night meant to secure the empire's future dissolved into vigil. If later accounts hold truth, the mercury had already begun its merciless work, moving through her blood, disrupting nerves, burning her stomach, and weakening the organs meant to bear children. For 2 weeks, the court lived in tense stillness. Ivan, sleepless, refused to leave her side. Some sources described him praying. Others claimed he interrogated servants furiously, demanding to know who had harmed his household. Rumors spread of sorcery and secret enemies among boyars. Physicians clung to simple explanations: exhaustion, travel fever, but nothing halted her decline. On November 13, 1571, 15 days after the wedding, Marfa Sobakina died in the Tsar's arms. Whether she spoke final words is unknown, though later stories imagined a whisper begging forgiveness for her mother. Ivan's grief snapped into rage. Convinced hidden hands had poisoned his third wife, he launched a storm of vengeance. 20 people, attendants, physicians, relatives, were seized. Torture chambers echoed with cries. Some accounts claimed executions in Red Square, bodies impaled as warnings to traitors. What began as mourning became a purge fueled by paranoia. Marfa's father, Vasily Sobakina, was spared execution only to be forced into monastic exile. Her brothers, doomed by accusations of witchcraft, were beheaded. Ivan personally led interrogations. Testimonies pointed to Marfa's mother and the rumored potion, its key ingredient, mercury, celebrated then for treating ailments and infertility. To modern ears, the idea seems reckless. To the 16th century, it was advanced medicine. But by the time confessions surfaced, the innocent had already died. Some captives were released after brutal floggings. Others vanished forever into Kremlin cells. Ivan's wrath rarely cooled, and this tragedy deepened the paranoia that shaped the last years of his reign. Centuries later, scholars sought to untangle truth from myth. In 2009, forensic anthropologists examined remains attributed to Marfa Sobakina. Tests revealed traces of mercury, supporting, though not proving, the chronicler's tale. A facial reconstruction showed a young woman of delicate, serene beauty, contrasting painfully with her fate. Martha's short life inspired art as well as history. Rimsky-Korsakov's opera The Tsar's Bride and Lev May's drama of the same name preserved her sorrow in music and literature. But beneath cultural legend lay a darker legacy. Ivan's deepened paranoia that led to massacres, purges, and years of bloodshed. From that winter onward, he tightened his grip on his realm, convinced betrayal lurked even within his own chambers. A few grains of mercury, passed in secrecy, had become one of the quietest weapons history had known. What other secrets lie sealed within royal archives? How many queens or brides died from treatments meant to ensure vitality? For every tragedy recorded, others surely vanished without witness. Marfa Sobakina's fate remains a reminder. Behind crowns and ceremonies lay dangers as lethal as any battlefield. Hidden within the rituals of royal medicine were powders and tinctures capable of altering dynasties, sometimes ending them. And so her story stands as the opening chapter in a long chronicle of peril behind palace doors, a warning from the shadows of Muscovy that even love, in the wrong hands, can destroy an empire.